Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to this evening's edition of Romola D Reports. I'm here this evening with CIA whistleblower Barbara Hartwell, who many people may be familiar with because she has done many podcasts and interviews with me over the last year. Barbara Hartwell is an independent investigator and intelligence analyst, journalist, former CIA, NOC psychological operations, Black Ops survivor, and she also describes herself on her website as a sovereign child of God and a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, ordained in 1979 with a doctorate in divinity. And her intention with her website is to expose government lies, crimes, corruption, conspiracies, and cover-ups. And it's kind of in that capacity that Barbara is here tonight. We're going to have a conversation this evening on counterintelligence, alt media, how groups, human rights groups, activist groups are manipulated deliberately from behind the scenes, how there is a lot of disinformation that is floated around, how there's a lot of false accusations, false allegations, and false prophets in our midst, and how what appears to be to some people as dissension and infighting is really a struggle for the truth to surface, and with a lot of bad actors in the midst. As many people who've been following what's been going on lately on Twitter, on my Twitter line, with what's been happening with Catherine Horton, with all of the fracas that she's created over the last year, with various other actors such as Deborah Weber, etc., all of whom I've been obliged to write cease and desist to and do innumerable podcasts about with Melanie Richin, with other people, primarily to put forward the truth about what's been happening. So Barbara Hartwell is, because she's been a journalist in the alt media space for many years, and because of her background in the CIA, has a sort of a real insider's understanding of counterintel. So Barbara, I'm so glad you're here this evening, and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Romola.
You're very welcome. Barbara, earlier today we were speaking about what counterintelligence really is, and how, agencies like the CIA and other agencies from behind the scenes tend to manipulate groups. You spoke to me about this being a sort of normative practice for them, and I thought that was highly illuminating. Did you want to talk a little bit about that, to kind of frame this conversation a bit?
Okay, yeah. Obviously, we have had other podcasts before about, COINTELPRO and the counterintelligence operations, and that is actually one of the areas of my expertise. I think for tonight, we had it in mind to cover some of the groups that are promoting the so-called targeted individuals community, right?
Right. That is our focus for tonight. Our focus is extrajudicial targeting and the entire sphere of TI activism, TI leaders, TI groups, and what certain groups and leaders espouse, self-established leaders, I may add.
Okay, well, the first thing I would like to say, Romola, on this issue would be that in a counterintelligence operation, if this is government agencies, which are the ones that do run these, and there's a number of different ones that are involved, but what they will do is if they see an issue coming to the forefront, to the public, for instance, such as the targeting, and we can just specify part of that targeting would be with directed energy weaponry, right?
Right, absolutely. That is one of the main subjects.
So now let me just go back in time for a minute to describe what I first encountered. We're going back at least 20 years or more. When I first went public with my case, which was in 1995, shortly thereafter, I was contacted by a lot of people. At that time, I did have a public email address, and I got a lot of contacts from readers of my work, and they were basically interested in the information that I was publishing, and some of it was about the directed energy weapons. Now, without naming any names that far back, I can say that there were groups going on at that time that formed that were for the purpose of exposing the directed energy weaponry and all that. And, the way that the intelligence community works, all right, is when they see an issue coming up, knowing that it cannot be contained totally, it cannot be denied, let's put it that way, that it's actually happening. Well, then they put a plan in place, which is called, it's not only a counterintelligence operation, it's also something called a containment operation. So they'll choose people, they recruit people.
Yeah.
All right. Some of them are intelligence operative, but most of them are not. Most of them are just activists. And mostly they're amateurs. They're not people with any kind of intelligence background. But they're people who are looking for attention. They're usually loud, and, they're out there trying to make a name for themselves. So they will then exploit these people for their purpose in order to put a certain spin on whatever the issue is, okay? For instance...
And that sort of is what we see across the board in alt media today. I mean, we've been seeing it for a long time, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, but I remember back in the day, there were people... There was a group, and it was a website also. I think it was a group as well. It was called Mind Control Forum. And are you there, Ramola?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just heard some kind of thing on the line. So anyway, the Mind Control Forum, they had picked up some of my material and had posted it on their website. Okay, then I started getting these contacts from all these people, and they were starting to try to sway me as to what I should and should not be speaking about. Okay?
Right.
Now, I'm not a joiner, Romola, you know me, okay?
Right.
I'm not a team player or I don't join groups as a rule. I'm totally independent. So I'm getting these...
There's a great value to being independent, as you know, Barbara. That's what I strive to be as well. Even though I affiliate and support and, help raise up a whole bunch of groups, but I strive to be independent as a writer and as a journalist.
Well, yes, Romola. But actually, in my case, I'm pretty extreme in terms of I'm reclusive. I always have been. That's just my nature, and it's something that I have decided upon. But in any case, I find these people were trying to influence me as to what I should and should not be focusing on. Now, I don't have expertise in technology, okay? I am not a scientist, and my expertise is not in kind of technology. I do, however, know quite a bit about the systems of weapons, simply because I had to dig in and find out, because they were being used on me.
Right.
Okay,
right.
So I had people telling me, "Oh, you really need to focus on the weaponry. That's the issue. That's the issue." And my response to these people was, "That's your issue. You go ahead and do that. I'll do things the way I feel is right for me to do them." All right? So, again, we're talking about that my area of expertise is psychological operations and counterintelligence. I'm more interested in exposing why this is happening, okay? What the agenda is behind it, rather than the nuts and bolts
of what exactly it is. Yeah, the methodologies or the technology. You're more interested in the sort of the behind-the-scenes maneuvers. And
well, yes, and
the rationale.
And who is behind it. So I don't know if that's sufficient to describe just the basic idea. But, however, when they do a containment operation, the idea behind it is to, like, throw out a dragnet, okay? They identify people who they see are out there, maybe going public or posting public information, that kind of thing, or discussing certain issues. They'll throw out a dragnet, and they'll try to corral or lasso them into their own corral. So this way, now we can control the narrative of what is being spoken about, what is being exposed. We can put the spin on it that we have decided is what the public should be believing, because they can't contain it totally. They can't stop it. So they try to do a sort of it's like behavior modification in a way.
Right.
They try to modify the behavior and the actions of the people that are out there by putting a spin or constructing a narrative. This is the way it is, okay? This is what's happening. If you don't buy into this narrative, then you're wrong. And it's along those lines.
And would you say that's sort of the primary intention, Barbara, to control the narrative, because the narrative is so important, and because the people who are behind the scenes, these government bodies and agencies, actually imagine they can control the narrative,
Well, exactly. But you see, they can't, Romola, in the end, because what we're dealing with here is, unfortunately, most people don't have the kind of a background where they can even understand the depths of depravity here that's being reported. Yes, and they also, if people are not aware of what's actually going on, then they fall prey. They fall prey to every charlatan that comes down the pike. Somebody who comes up with these ideologies or these narratives about exactly what is happening and what needs to be done.
What needs to be done, yeah. I mean, we're sort of living in a kind of moment in the targeted individual community, it appears, where there's lots of people stepping forward, stating what needs to be, what should be done, what needs to be done, and here's the way to do it. And so there's a lot of efforts underway, and, this is, when I look at it as a journalist, I simply try to feature as many efforts as I can. If people are doing something, I invite them to come on my show and come do a news break and report what they are doing and help, publicize it, etc. And there are a few other people doing the same kind of thing. But it seems like there are certain groups who are seeking to establish some kind of authoritative stance in our midst.
Exactly, Romola. They are the self-proclaimed experts, all right?
That's right. And as you know, I mean, at this point, it's sort of inevitable, Barbara, that we actually talk about specific groups and specific people, because these specific people have been engaging with me lately and have been speaking for all of us in ways that I think are highly detrimental. One of them, as you know, is Elo Free from the so-called Freedom for Targeted Individuals, a group that she started. And she's been quoted extensively in this article that a mainstream reporter recently wrote in the Chicago Sun-Times, Neil Steinberg. And she's been quoted as stating that, most people who are targeted are mentally ill. And so I'm actually working on an article right now to report the conversation she had with me shortly after this article was published, because I was very keen to find out, to what extent had she actually said something like this, and to what extent had this guy taken her words out of context and, really mixed up what she had said. So in the process, I did find out that, in fact, she had indeed made statements to him to that extent. So supposedly, she has said that, this is from her own stating to me, she said that about 5%, she told me that she told him that about 5% of TIs are mentally ill, and that she's encountered people who are mentally ill. Now, this is very, very problematic to me, because part of what we are combating, those of us who are activists and journalists in the space, is this precise specter of psychiatry and mental illness. The entire way, as you know, the assault on people in the community with directed energy weapons is being hidden is by naming them mentally ill. So it's a primary issue. It's a core issue. It's a kind of essential issue. And so to encounter somebody who has established herself as a talk show host, as some kind of, supporter of whistleblowers, supporter of the targeted, who's a spokesperson for those who are targeted, for somebody like that to make fallacious, false, problematic statements about those who are targeted being mentally ill, I think is a very big deal.
Well, yes, Romola, and let me just repeat for the record here, because I really have to have this very clear. I am not a part of any of this, meaning that I'm not involved in the so-called, quote, targeted individual community. I don't have involvement with any of these groups. I do not know any of the people personally that we are going to speak about. Not a one, okay?
That's a good point to make, yes.
For me, I'm just speaking strictly for myself.
You, yes.
I understand that you have had involvement with these people,
yes.
And so your experiences are not only professional but personal as well. For me,
yes,
I'm acting as an observer and an analyst and as a journalist, because I see what is going on, and I myself have been on the receiving end of some very idiotic attacks by some of these individuals. Okay.
Well, yes. If you're referring to Dr. Catherine Horton, yes, I think you and I have both been on the receiving end of attacks from her. So,
well, let's get back to this woman who you mentioned, Ella Free. First of all, it's an obvious pseudonym. Okay, I have never heard of Ella Free up until I guess it was a couple of years ago. I first saw her name mentioned on the website of Ken Adachi. And of course, Ken Adachi was the primary PR shill for FBI Chief Ted Gunderson. He runs this new age government disinfo website, and anyone that Adachi promotes is automatically a suspect to me. And so that's when I first heard of this person. And so I decided, let me find out who is this woman? Where did she come from? And I started to listen to one of the podcasts of an interview that she was doing, and I could barely. I have almost a zero tolerance for stupidity, Romola. It was hard for me to listen, but she was totally unprofessional. Okay.
Yes, many of us have heard her podcasts and interviews, and
she's just not professional, and that was my first impression.
She's not a journalist, she's not a real interviewer. She's kind of established herself. Well, this is part of what we were talking about earlier, people who suddenly appear and establish themselves as voices and talk show hosts and interviewers and whatnot.
But what bothered me, you see, the first thing that bothered me is that her name, Ella Free. Now, nobody has that name, Ella Free. And then she has on a couple of websites I've seen, because I looked into this woman, there's this picture of somebody with the arms spread out wide, standing in the sunset like, I'm free, I'm Ella Free. So that's, in itself, to me, is a psyop, because when you use a word, words have power and they have meaning. So So Ella Free. Okay?
Yes.
All right. So then I see her being heavily promoted by Ken Adachi. So that, again, and then once
I should tell you something. I just wanted to mention her promotion by Ken Adachi occurred at a time when I was working full-time as a journalist, writing about targeting, interviewing people on my website. This was, I think, well before Targeted Justice came on the scene, before some of these other groups came on the scene. And Ella simply had, around that time, suddenly appeared out of nowhere. She started doing these support calls. Now, you see, this is what Ella and various others have been doing. They've been doing support calls. So they sort of set up an open forum on TalkShoe or some other community conference call forum, and people can call in, and, she's just talking with them, literally. And so it's very different from what I was doing. I was, from the beginning, working as a journalist. So the thing that struck me when Ken Adachi promoted Ella Free is that he promoted her as somebody who is documenting, recording, reporting, and interviewing targeted individuals, those who are targeted, with not a mention of my own work. Now, some people watching this may think I'm sitting here running some kind of narcissistic, self-promoting platform. I absolutely am not. As people know who know me and who are familiar with my work over the years, I've just been pumping out the articles because I'm focused on my writing. I'm focused on the journalism. I've just been doing it. But it struck me as very odd that when my work existed and when the work of so many other people existed, people like Mark Rich, who's put books out, people like Renee Pittman Mitchell, who is continuing to, write on her website and put books out. It was Ella Free whose work was suddenly being promoted. I just found that completely astonishing.
Well, I don't find it odd at all, Romola, and I can tell you why. Because Ken Adachi is a charlatan. He runs a disinfo website. He doesn't promote legitimate people. Ken Adachi has literally been running a 20-year defamation campaign against me.
Yes,
okay?
and I have noticed
that. For 20 years. Okay, so if you wonder why he wouldn't, I think I think you're giving him a degree of credit that he certainly does not deserve. He doesn't promote legitimate people. He promotes whack jobs. People talk about space aliens and reptilians and all that kind of bizarre thing, and these new age occultic ideologies. That's what he promotes. And I can guarantee you, anybody that he is promoting, anybody, is a liar, a whack job, a charlatan, or some kind of government stooge or disinfo specialist. He has no interest in the truth. That's the whole point.
That's very interesting to me, Barbara. And I have to say, since learning from you and reading some of his articles written excoriating and defaming and libeling and slandering you, I began to understand to a greater deal, this murk that exists in the old media world, where some people promote each other and put down other people. And you happen to be one of the people who was put down by people like him. And, I explored the whole Ted Gunderson story, as you know, because Ted Gunderson has made horrific statements about you, and you have come out and exposed Ted Gunderson, who to most of us has always been known as this whistleblower who wrote that affidavit, exposing pedophilia, Satanism, child trafficking, and targeting, and directed energy weapon use on people. But at the same time, what you exposed was the fact that he had been engaging in gun running, and he was a Satanist himself, and he was married to an ex-Satanist.
There was all kinds of things. Yeah, I mean, we don't even need to go, because he's not the point of this program, but I can briefly give you the Ted Gunderson trifecta, if you will. Okay?
Please.
The Ted Gunderson trifecta. He sold Stinger missiles to Osama bin Laden in 1979 when he was still working for the FBI, but of course Gunderson was far deeper than that. He was involved with the CIA too. So Stinger missiles to Osama bin Laden in 1979. In 1998, he married Diana Rively, the ex-wife of Anton LaVey, a high priestess in Satanism. The founder of the Church of Satan was Anton LaVey. He married Diana Rively. I've got evidence on all this. And then the third part, number 3 in the trifecta, is he tried to solicit Larry Flint, publisher of Hustler magazine, the porno king of the world, to engage in his legal, quote, legal counterintelligence operations, which are anything but legal. Now, again, Kenadachi was, at the time of Gunderson's life, the primary PR shill for all Gunderson's nonsense and lies, okay? So that tells me, when I see Kenadachi promoting somebody, I know there's a red flag coming up.
Yes, and I just want to make one point before we get off the subject of Ted Gunderson, Barbara, and that's that, wasn't it after you exposed his gun running and selling of Stinger missiles to Osama bin Laden, wasn't it after that he came after you and, wrote these incredibly venomous things about you online that are now online, I should say? Well,
yes, but here's the thing, Romola. The laughable thing about it really was that we're going back to, I broke off my association professionally and personally with Ted Gunderson in 2000 after I discovered a lot of the criminal activities that he was involved in. Mm-hmm. And what happened was, I didn't go right out and start exposing him. It took me a while, but I had documented evidence. I had documents and evidence, and I finally went out and started to expose the stuff. I felt it was my duty to do that. Mm-hmm. And then, yes, after I put some of this stuff out, he was on all the radio programs, yelling and screaming about me and saying I'm a CIA agent and a disinfo agent and all this stuff. But the funny thing about it was he finally admitted selling the Stinger missiles to Osama bin Laden. After he was exposed, he finally came out and admitted it, and then said, "Oh, well, we had to do that because it was, Afghanistan. It was the Red Menace."
And how did he admit it, if I may ask? Was it on a radio show like this, or was it
Oh no, these are on big alternative media radio shows like GCN and RBN and there's a whole bunch of different stations that I used to be on somewhat regular basis, and so did Ted. Okay, so he was out there, not only defaming me in print, but he was defaming me on all these radio shows and at these conferences. The point that I'm trying to make here, Romola, is that I think we got started when we started speaking about Kenadachi.
Kenadachi
he's a very evil person, okay? And the damage that this one person has done over a period of decades is just, it's unfathomable, because I could never, he's posted his crap all over the internet, and they're lies. And they're the most, just, go ahead.
Highly defamatory to you. And, this is something that I explode because other people were talking about it and sending me links and sending me articles and, making statements. And I would always send them to the podcast that we've done, but we've talked about this, but it never seemed to be enough. And, it's like, how could they have missed the kind of sequence of events here where it appears that both Ted Gunderson and Kenadachi defamed and libeled you directly after Gunderson was exposed by you?
Of course. But, Romola, you have to understand, look, I am not an aggressive person in any manner, never have been. I have a website. I do not run a high-traffic commercial website. I do not seek publicity. I limit myself to putting my material on one website. My stuff has been posted all over the Internet by other sites over the years. All right? But the whole thing is that these people are doing, they're on the job, okay?
Yeah.
The counterintelligence operations recruit amateurs, and they're always aggressive, ambitious amateurs. And what they do is they take a statement. Example: Barbara Hartwell is a CIA disinfo agent. And then you've seen it spread all over the internet.
Yes.
And then other idiots, it's like the game of telephone, where they start embellishing on it. And
they pass it around, and there's so many people, supporting the story and putting out lies. I mean, today we've got the cyber trolls doing that, I guess in 20 years ago, I guess it was still cyber trolls.
Well, it was
they were just
similar.
trolls.
I mean, but the point is that in order to discredit a high-value target, okay, by a high-value target I mean somebody who has, like myself, who has actual credentials, who actually came out of intelligence work, okay, who has solid evidence and accurate information. They need to discredit that person or anyone like me, all right? Because if people were to believe the kind of exposés that I write and the work I do on radio or something like that, if they were to believe that, it would create a problem, and it has created a problem. Okay, and most of the people that just spread these lies they're just these little penny ante people. They don't have a life. They live in their mother's basement or something, okay, and they want attention. They're trying to make a name for themselves, and they're using these pseudonyms that's not even their real name, okay?
This is Stan J. CATERBNE, Advanced Media Group. It's now 8:58 a.m., Monday, October 5th, 2020. I'm waiting for a conference call with my counselor for probation, case 0921-219 with Ken Ruffner. Now, Ken Ruffner said he emailed me the video link last week. I never got it. Then he emailed it to me this morning and asked CATERBNE at live. I didn't get it. Now he just said he did it a few minutes ago to stancatterberne@gmail.com, and I didn't get it. So I don't know if he's not sending them or if someone's deleting them. It's now 9:10 a.m. and I told Ken in an email I'm not getting the links to call me. He still hasn't called me. I just saw him walk by here. He said it's his first day in. He said he couldn't see me. I said I came here just in case they shut off my phone to use their phone to call him. But he still hasn't called me yet, so I'm sitting out here outside the office in the parking lot of Community Service Group out in Greenfield.
Community Services Group. If you know the extension of the person you are calling, you may dial it at any time. For access to our Say or Spell by Name, press 2. To make, change, or cancel an outpatient appointment, press 3. To make a referral, press 4. Wait while I transfer your call. This call may be monitored for training and quality assurance purposes. Community Services Group, Carla speaking. May I help you?
Yeah, Carla. Ken just called me and I'm trying to reach him. Could you connect me to Ken Ruffner, please?
Sure. Hang on one moment.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hello, Stan.
Ken.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my phone didn't even ring.
Okay, so yeah, I just did call you about a minute ago.
Yeah, I know, it never rang.
Okay, and you never got the email either?
Nope. They have my account so screwed up. They're even siphoning cash out of my accounts. I had to go borrow $40 from a cousin to pay a phone bill that's due today. I was afraid they're going to shut my phone off.
Okay.
I'm having the same problems with documents I file in federal court. They're doing the same thing. Stealing documents, diverting them, deleting them, or whatever.
Yeah. Jeez. In the meantime, I'm not even sure how to get into my email. I hadn't been into this thing for almost 7 months, and it's changed. So,
yeah, we'll just do it by phone.
Yeah, rather than screw around with it any longer.
Yeah, because they even have my camera out on my computer. I couldn't even, sit at home and do it in my laptop. They fried my desktop 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Well, what's been happening in town and with you and your neighborhood and your life and your family and
Bad, Ken. Everything's like on steroids. They shorted out my grill this morning. I tried to cook breakfast. Shorted that out this morning. Wet my floor in my basement again last night. Had to pull up a carpet, dry it, put it back down. Saturday night, Friday night, the Spanish kid 2 doors up scared me into my house. He's the one that caused problems to me 3 years ago when we went to city police. And he's back. I mean, they go in and out of these houses. You can't tell who lives there and who doesn't. Nobody ever moves. You never see moving vans, but you see new people. It's ridiculous. It's typical what they do to whistleblowers. I mean,
Well, are you? How's your pain level with your physical problems?
Well, they broke my 2 vaporizer pens, so that's a problem. I mean, it's the same old. The one thing though, the doctor did. Had a doctor's appointment on the 24th, and my doctor finally gave me a different prescription to a new medication instead of the anti-inflammatories.
Yeah.
And that's helping some, but it doesn't, get me to the point where I can exercise. So I asked her about, people get these shots in their back for pain.
Right.
And she gave me a referral. She said, yeah, she goes, you know what? She goes, a lot of people have great relief that way. Now, she gave me a referral 2 weeks ago, and the referral is a pain management doctor that has to call me to come in and get the shot. I haven't heard from him.
Oh. Well, how long ago was that? I mean, it might be a while.
Well, the 24th of September. So I'm going to stop into the doctor's today. She wants to know how these new meds are working, so I'm going to stop in and let the nurse know and, ask him again about the referral. So I'll follow up on that.
How are the new meds working?
A little better than the old ones. I didn't feel them. I mean, it was like, they weren't doing anything. And these anti-inflammatories, she started these back in December 2018.
Yeah.
So, at least, I think they're helping more than the other ones were. But,
right.
It doesn't help much, but I got to get to the point where I can exercise, and the only way is, the pain meds I was getting, which is Vicodin or Percocet, something
right.
strong. I mean, I'm using a walker now in my basement all the time. I have an electric wheelchair on the first floor that I use.
Okay. Huh. What is it like? Like you said, it's like a wheelchair.
No, it's an electric wheelchair.
Oh, okay, I hear you. So that you use that just on the first floor. You can't get that up the steps, I guess.
No, I built ramps to take it outside, but I didn't do that yet. You know, if I want to run it up to the shopping center or take it on a bus.
Right.
I mean, I can get it out, but you know, I need one of the lighter ones.
Right.
And I was going to buy one of the lighter ones, but you know, they keep siphoning my money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back in 2015, I had $60,000 in the bank. $60,000. And it's gone. You know how they get it? Vandalism and thefts and siphoning money. Now, they did this to me 3 or 4 times since 1987. Every time I built up cash. 1987, when they extorted my company, I got a buyout for my stock, 100-some thousand. They took that. Then I got inheritance from my dad. They took that. You know, then I built cash up. They took that. The cycle's been going on since 1987.
Yeah.
They always find ways. I had $7,000 when I walked out of prison last month. And that's a buffer for me, so I don't have to live month to month. They got all that as of last month. Picking away. Vandalism and theft. See, I have to replace the stuff. I can't, you know. In Conestoga, when I lived in Conestoga, in 2005 and 6, I got paid on 2 insurance claims, a couple $1,000s for this stuff. But since I moved in the city with Lancaster City Police, insurance companies won't pay me. They won't pay the claims. So I got to wait for one of these judges to do something.
Yeah. Well, I see. Whenever you send, like, Mark or somebody an email, I get copies of your emails that come through here.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing I can do to offset some of the stuff. I mean.
Yeah, you had mentioned what the chief of police is going to retire, right?
Yeah, Berkeyheiser.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mess in there. There was a murder the other night. Sunday night.
Was it?
Or Saturday night. Yeah, 5 or 6 blocks from my house.
Yeah, the other one was close to your house, too.
Oh, I know. And, you know, I wrote to Mark, I said, you know, I know all these guys around me have guns. A lot of these Spanish and black guys. I mean, I'm not trying to be prejudiced, but the other night, when they scared me into my house, there were 10 cars in the back of my house at night, sitting there. That's what they do. They keep me inside. And, you know, what do I have to protect myself? Pepper spray. That's it. I can't call the police.
There's no way you can ever call the police about anything.
Well, no. They're part of it. Ken, they did this to my dad in the 60s. The same scenario.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
You know, my dad was Navy. He had the synthetic telepathy. They brainwashed him with the electroshock treatments. That's how I was able to get Social Security disability for being a victim of mind control. My documentation. My dad had documents. I have documents, and my older brother was a victim of the LSD experiments in the Air Force. And they all kept documents. So in 2009, I applied for Social Security disability on the premise that I was a victim of mind control, and that's how they awarded me the benefits.
So you've been on disability since 19 what?
Since 2009. Well, 2009, what they did was they awarded me benefits in 2009, but they paid me back a year. They paid me a lump sum of $23,000, $21,000. But they declared me disabled as of December 2005, and that's the date I used when I became full-time telepathic with the synthetic telepathy. That's one of the main attributes of these weapon systems.
So do you miss working?
Oh, hell, Ken, they extorted my businesses from me in 87, of course. Do I miss working? You know what?
Yeah.
Before I applied for Social Security back in 2009, I applied everywhere I could. I mean, from McDonald's all the way up to Commonwealth Securities, to the city of Lancaster for crossing guard. Never got one interview. I even went through the Ready to Work program at Laheep, or not Laheep, down, Liberty Street.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I went through the, Ready to Work program, got certified Ready to Work. Nobody.
Career Link, right?
Yeah, Career Link. Nobody would hire me. I still try working, to help me out in addition to the disability, but I can never get anything. They haven't let me work since '87. The things that I did do since '87 were all set up just to keep me out of courts, keep me, content.
Yeah.
Away from the courts. So finally in 2005, I filed myself. I went through so many attorneys between '87 and 2005. Of course, nobody's going to take the case because they're all, in on it, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, what have you been doing with your days? I mean,
well, Ken, I've got 2 cases now before the U.S. Supreme Court. My case against the NSA went to conference the 29th of September, last week, and I still haven't got a decision yet. And my case against the Lancaster County Prison is up next. It's in the U.S. Supreme Court, docketed. So that'll probably go before the Supreme Court justices in about a month. And I have cases in federal court down in Philly. My amicus, or my habeas corpus, regarding these charges. And I've been working on the house.
Oh, yeah. Well, what are you doing at the house? I mean, that's one thing that keeps you... Thank goodness you have hobbies and interests, music and TV and...
Yeah, I'm running out of projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you working on now?
Well, I did the outside, painted the outside, the door and things like that, the awning, the deck out front. Then out back, I painted my fence, did more painting on the fence, and put a heater in my screened-in porch, and put a grill in there, grilled yesterday. I cook it there like a kitchen.
Yeah.
But they shorted it out. This morning, they blew out my circuit breaker twice. And it was fine yesterday. I left the house, though, yesterday afternoon, and came back and, same old. They do it when I'm in the house. If I'm upstairs, they'll get in the basement.
Well, what did you grill? Tell me at least.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Yesterday I grilled. I got a lot of peppers from the food bank. So
Okay.
I made a fried pepper sandwich. Fried peppers. I sauteed mushrooms, cheese, and put tomatoes and onions in a sub roll.
Ah. So like a veggie sub.
Well, Italians, we eat fried peppers a lot.
Yeah. They're good.
Yeah. Yeah, I fried about 12 peppers up. And, I keep them in the fridge and I just pull them out when I want them. I'll use them in omelets, sandwiches.
Huh.
This morning I was gonna make hash browns, sausage, and 2 eggs over light and toast. That didn't work out. And I didn't have time to cook it inside because I had to come out here in case they shut my phone off. I wouldn't have been able to get a hold of you.
Yeah. Brother.
I'm used to it, Ken. This has been going on since 1987.
Well, have you had any contact with Mark in the past?
Yeah, I meet with Mark the 22nd. And our last meeting, he still didn't get the treatment plan. So I said, well, Mark, rather than call Ken, I'm going to meet with him Monday, the 5th. He said, well, that'll be fine. Just talk to him then. So I left a message. I called back. Remember you told me to call back and have the office send it to him? Well, what they did was they connected me to a nurse. But I still left a message, So you never got it, so.
I think I'm trying to remember how that was now. So I think it was right after I talked to you. I think they forwarded me a copy of the message that you sent to them.
Well, he never got the treatment plan, so you'll have to get it to him.
All right. I'll see what I can do to expedite that. I just figured out how to get into my email here. It's a little bit different. I hope this doesn't... I forgot what my username and password was to get into this computer.
You know what? Isn't that a pain?
Yeah.
Remembering all your passwords, huh?
Yeah, it's weird walking in. It's the first time I've been sitting in this office since the 18th of March.
They may shut you down again.
I know. Well, I only can't... The main reason I'm in here today is actually I'm getting my flu shot. And I thought, well, I have to go in there anyway, so I may as well refamiliarize myself with the office, if I can remember where it is. And,
yeah, I got my shot about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. It's a good thing to get that.
Yeah, I get them every year.
Yeah. I just turned my lamp on and it doesn't work. It's gonna take a while to get acclimated here. But even being here, I mean, I'm still not seeing people face to face. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I can do everything I do here at home, except that some things are a little bit easier to do, like internal communication and that kind of stuff. It's easier when you can grab a hold of somebody and try and call them from the house.
Yeah.
It's different. Whole different ball game. I don't know. As far as the virus goes, I don't know. I really didn't pay much attention to the virus over the weekend. I don't know.
Oh, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
You know, NFL now, two games were postponed.
Yeah.
New York's shutting down, I think, 9 zip codes. They got a couple of businesses, non-essentials and essential businesses have a couple days to get ready to, for the shutdown again.
Well, this is all predicted. I mean, I guess is this the second wave, or is this did the
Yeah.
first wave ever go away?
Yeah, this is the second wave, they say, with the flu. And, pardon me?
I said, yeah, plus with the flu.
With the flu, yeah. And, they said, I guess there's 9 people now in Trump's orbit. New cases.
Yeah.
They said that's more than a lot of the countries have, new cases.
Yeah, they said the White House is considered a hotspot.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that weird, though? You know what's weird? They're all Republicans that have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I don't know what the percentages of those who didn't wear masks,
Well, they had the Rose Garden event for the new U.S. Supreme Court Justice, and nobody wore masks, and that's where it happened.
Yeah.
And, Trump was here at Harrisburg International Airport for a rally, and Wolf is telling those people to go get tested because he could have had it back then.
Yeah, I could have. Oh my gosh.
I hope he gets out. He might get out today.
Yeah, that's the last I heard.
Yeah, I hope he does.
Yeah.
But he's taking ownership of it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, he's at risk because of his age and his weight and everything. So.
Yeah, I think he's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to other people his age.
Yeah.
When you look at him and Biden, they're about the same age, I think. I mean, there's a big difference there, you know it.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely more youthful than Joe Biden is.
Well, I just wish for the best for him.
Yeah, definitely. All of them.
Yeah. Everybody in your family okay?
Yeah, I don't know anybody that has it yet. And I talked to my brother Saturday night. His boy played for Army. He played the last 4 minutes of the game Saturday. And he said Yeah, and he said down there he didn't know of anybody yet either.
Yeah, it's weird. There's so many people that have it, but the people that I don't know, I guess.
You know what, Ken? That's the problem. There's so many people that don't know people, so to them it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like not reality.
Right.
And they just won't listen and wear masks. I mean, it's a simple thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually your attitude changes when it hits you personally or hits someone that you
Right.
know.
Or when it hits somebody you know or hits somebody in the family, then it, but you'd think seeing, people don't watch the news either. They use these social media sites for their information and news, and that's a lot of the problem.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that could be a part of it. Yeah, definitely. Well, your sleep pattern is what? About the same? You usually go to bed pretty early and...
Actually, now I'm sleeping more.
Are you?
Yeah, because, without money, and, they had my car down for a week and a half, sabotaged my car, my alternator, I had to get that fixed. So, without money, I don't go anywhere. I don't even run to the store that much. So I end up, cooking more and sleeping more and,
Right.
doing the same amount of work otherwise, but.
Right. Yeah, appetite's okay. You've always eaten pretty well.
Oh yeah, my appetite's real good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started cooking, I'd say about 15 years ago, maybe a little more, and I love to cook.
That's when you started cooking.
Yeah, probably about more than 15 years ago.
What did you do before that? Just eat out?
Well, no, I was always with friends or what, when I was controller for Dave Flum, I was kind of surrogate for him. I mean, I ate with them just about every night, 3 or 4 times a week. Then we'd boat in the summer down at the bay, so, I didn't need to cook.
Right. It is a useful thing to know how to do. It does come in handy.
Yeah, and I get fresh fruit all the time.
Yeah.
And I still go to the food bank, and I get, I get good vegetables there.
Mm-hmm.
Peppers, onions, potatoes.
Have you been watching any? Do you watch sports on TV or movies, or have you been watching some of your own movies, your DVDs? And
No, I've been watching. I watched Army. My nephew watched a little of that game.
Yeah.
But Eagles aren't doing too well, so I'm not watching them too much.
Yeah.
But I have sitcoms that I watch a lot.
Yeah.
Modern Family, According to Jim, 2.5 Men.
Yeah.
Because it'll run through 3 or 4. It'll keep running through episodes.
Right.
I don't have to change the channel, so I can fall asleep to that stuff pretty good. And I like comedy. I need light stuff. I don't. I got enough of heavy things going on in my life. I don't need.
Yeah, it is important to have that light stuff, like goofy stuff, even like Green Acres.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Stuff is so. You have to laugh, and some of the stuff is funny.
I went back. That Peacock came out with a new internet service for shows, and I watched old Cheers rerun. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, Cheers was a classic.
Yeah, and Frasier.
Yeah. Like the writing in those shows was so clever.
Yeah, they were all Thursday night shows. NBC's Thursday night shows. Boy, they had hits, one after another. Friends, Frasier.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah. Have you gone out at all? I mean, I know that the last time we talked, you had frequented or had gone to Loxley's a couple times.
Oh, you know what? I haven't been there in probably a month and a half, 2 months. I haven't been out for a drink in probably a month and a half, 2 months. I mean, I don't, you know.
Yeah, that's tough. Just when you don't have any contact with anybody, or you're just looking at the same four walls all the time.
Well, Ken, I go out, I get gang stalked. I get harassed and stalked. I mean, I put up with it, but that's all that happens everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, it's bad. The gang stalking, the community stalking is bad.
Yeah. What about at home?
Bad. I can't walk out of my house with neighbors pulling up. I mean, it's all synchronized. It is classic. Other whistleblowers go through the same thing. Some of these people travel around the country and do this. They get paid. You know, they get paid.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how you do it. Where are you? Are you still sitting outside?
Yeah. Yeah, I figure I'd just wait till, you know, sit here, and I don't want to be driving or you call.
Yeah, I could walk down the hallway and look out the window and wave to you, but that's
Yeah. It's Media Group at 1250 Fremont Street, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, 167603. It's now 5:25 a.m. on Wednesday, July 29th, 2020, and I'm recording the updated monetization of COINTELPRO Stan J. CATERBNE podcast, the targeting by the Lancaster City Police and federal agents, the cops gang stalking program. On this podcast, first, I'm going to play the first preliminary hearing in December of 2017 for the first Mary stalking charge. Then I'm going to play the second preliminary hearing for the second Mary stalking charge, which was February 11th, 2019 in front of MDJ Bixler in Columbia. Then we're going to go into the podcast, and we're going to listen to the Raul Manchanda August 22nd, 2016 article that he published regarding the serendipitous reincarnation of the cops COINTELPRO gang stalking program. Now, after that, at the very end of this audio podcast, will be audio from a video regarding what happened today when I contacted the Manchandan law firm. So we're going to start with the first preliminary hearing. Your standard CATERBNE? Oh, yes, Your Honor. All right. Ms. Counsel, will you read the complaint? Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth first calls Bernilda Ramirez to the stand.
What was it?
Raise your left hand to Bible. Here. Left hand to Bible. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. Mr. Ramirez, where were you living in the year 2016 and 2017?
1250 Fremont, and 958.
Who were you living with at that time?
To the same grandkids.
Is one of your daughters Ashley Ramirez?
Yes.
And does one of your grandsons have initials of XM?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the individual who lives at 1250 Fremont Street?
Yes.
Who is that individual?
Stan CATERBNE?
Is he present in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Your Honor, may it be noticed that the witness has identified the defendant. Have you had any contact with the defendant?
Yes.
Just generally speaking. Let's begin with September 22nd of 2016. At that time, did you report an incident involving videos and photographs of your property?
Yes.
Who was taking these video records and photographs of your properties?
Sam,
What was he doing with them?
he puts it on YouTube and Twitter.
At that time, did he also harass you?
Yes.
What did he do to harass you?
He be cursing on me. And yeah, he curses on me.
Let's talk about September 29 of 2016. Did your daughter contact the police at that time?
Yes.
Did it have to do with music coming from the defendant's residence?
Yes.
Let's talk about November 4 of 2016. Did you contact the police at that point to make a report that he was taking photographs of your children and grandchildren?
Yes.
Did he post those photographs anywhere?
On the internet.
On May 18, 2017, did you contact the police to let them know that the defendant was approaching you in a threatening manner?
Yes.
What did he do at that time?
He cursed at me and said the B word and something about the house burned. Banging on the wall.
Just so I heard you correctly, he said something about burn in
Yes.
relation to your house.
Mhm.
Did you also contact the police on June 6th of this year and tell them that the defendant had yelled at your granddaughter on June 1 when she was in front of your house?
She was going to school.
And what happened?
I was inside the house and he was outside and he just approached her and said something to her. I said, do not talk to her. And the bus driver opened the door and that's when he cursed at me and the bus driver, my granddaughter heard it. I told my granddaughter, get in the car, get in the bus.
Was she ever, she was always positioned in front of your house at that
Yes.
time? On June 3rd, 2017, did you contact the police to let them know that there was banging on your wall coming from his house to the extent that items were falling
In the
down
bathroom.
in your house? And was there any loud music involved at that time?
There was too many banging.
Let's talk about October 31st, 2017. Your grandson, who has initials of XT, how old is he?
10.
Was there an incident involving him?
He was through the back of the house to go to school. And he said he was walking down, was putting something in the car, his car in the back. And he said he followed him, he described everything what he was wearing. He called me from the school, I told him call the police, let them know.
That was after he told you that the defendant had followed him.
Yeah.
On November 20th, 2017, did you contact the police to inform them of a video that had been posted to Twitter?
Yeah.
Who posted the video?
Sky.
What was the video about?
I have the video.
Are you able to pull that up?
Yes.
Your Honor, can we just have a moment for the witness to pull up the video? You see?
Yeah.
You have to put the volume up.
I'm going to pause it so you can put it up because I don't want to push the wrong button. Did you share this video with police?
No, I told the detective.
For the detective, okay. Judge, if I may just have you watch a portion of this video, which I've previously shown to defense counsel. And the volume is a little low, so. Is Ashley that you hear the speaker identify?
My daughter.
The speaker also says 1252.
That's my house.
And he also says we'll follow her in reference to Ashley. Over this last period of more than a year, how have the defendant's actions towards you affected you regarding your safety and the safety of your family living with you?
I can't take it. I can't. The effect of my kids, if it affected me, I call half of the precinct. I can't do it. I lost my daughter today because of this was going on. It's not fair. Not fair. I even asked him, stop banging on my wall. Stop doing that. My granddaughter's disabled. He bangs on the wall when he sleeps at.
Has this caused you any fear for your safety?
Yep.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
The Commonwealth next calls Detective Bradley Shank to stand.
You solemnly swear to affirm the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, something like
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Shank, how are you employed?
Police officer for Extra Bureau of Police.
For how long have you been so employed?
23 and a half years.
It appears that you are the applicant on this case.
That's correct.
Have you been the individual who has received each of the reports regarding the defendant in this case, or how have you learned about those incidents?
I first became involved on October 31st when I spoke to the 10-year-old grandson who Renault had testified about with the initials XT. I got actually personally interviewed XT on that date and took a statement from him. Also spoke with Renault later that day. We've been in contact from then up until now.
So through your investigation in this case, you've become familiar with all these incidents that were mentioned?
Yes, our records management system documents, the officers go to an incident, they document every incident they respond to. So the first 6-7 incidents that she testified to, I had personally no involvement in. However, I do have documentation that says it's all fine.
Based on your investigation and records in your file, are you able to confirm whether the defendant was cited for a violation of the Lancaster Noise Control Ordinance and found guilty at a summary trial on February 13, 2017 in relation to the report from Ms. Ramirez's daughter on September 29, 2016?
Yes, I actually reviewed the police report and went into web dockets where I found the disposition, which also known as CATERBNE extension.
In addition to being found guilty for that particular violation, are you able to confirm whether the defendant was also found guilty in absentia at a summary trial on August 10, 2017 in relation to a report from Ms. Ramirez on May 18, 2017 to which she previously testified?
Yes, through the same as the part.
And that was for summary harassment?
Maybe disorderly conduct. It was either harassment or disorderly conduct, but I don't recall specifically.
What charges did you file in this case?
I filed one count of misdemeanor LANCASTER.
Did these actions alleged in the affidavit final cause occur within your jurisdiction?
Yes.
The defendant in each of these incidents is Stanley CATERBNE,
Yes, identified in the reports by name, date of birth, and address.
and he's present today in the courtroom.
It's been quite a while since we met, but I've had prior contact here today.
Any further questions, Your Honor?
No questions, Joe.
The Commonwealth rests at this time.
No witnesses, Joe. Yes. Your Honor, this is just a disagreement between two neighbors. There is not a course of conduct. Banging on your neighbor's wall. It does not lead to a course of conduct of following your neighbor. On one occasion, he indicated he was driving around trying to see who was in front of his house. I just don't believe that this adds up to a M1 stalking or the rest that you throw out here.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth alleges that it has in fact shown a prima facie case for stalking based on the testimony of Ms. Brunilda Ramirez, wherein she testified that since late 2016 through this year, she has been repeatedly harassed. Members of her family have been stalked by the defendant. This is a course of conduct. He has repeatedly refused to abstain from this conduct. In addition, he has been found guilty of violations of the noise control ordinance as well as harassment and other charges in this case. And for that reason, we would ask that at this level, because we have proven a prima facie case, we would ask that all charges be bound over.
The motion to dismiss was denied. Listen to the testimony presented. There's sufficient evidence on a prima facie case.
Your Honor, requesting a bail reduction. Mr. CATERBNE has been incarcerated for a couple weeks and unable to post bail because he's indigent. We're asking that his bail be reduced to unsecured.
In this particular case, I'm assuming he's the next door neighbor to the victim.
Yes, Your Honor.
In this particular case, I'm going to deny bail because he'll be going right back home. Okay.
Okay, now that was the first preliminary hearing in 2017 for the first Ramirez stalking charge. Now we're going to hear the preliminary hearing of February 11, 2019 for the second Ramirez stalking charge, where they charged me with knocking on my wall, which I never did, and stalked them. And they charged me with a felony stalking charge.
Yes, Your Honor.
We're here this morning for Stanley CATERBNE versus the Commonwealth. Sworn in current Lancaster City, 11252 Fernlock Street, Lancaster, on January 8th of this year at approximately midnight. Defense counsel, ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Commonwealth, ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, we would note that the date on the front of the complaint, it should be 1/8/2019 through 1/11/2019.
Any objection to that, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Commonwealth, present your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the Commonwealth calls Brunilda Ramirez, please.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, not but the truth about the matter before the court today?
Yes.
Please have a seat.
Can you please state your name?
Brunilda Ramirez,
And where do you live, ma'am?
1252 Fremont Street.
Is that in Lancaster City?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to direct your attention to January 11th, 2019. Did you call the police that day?
Yes.
And why did you call the police?
Stan was banging on the wall so loud, just kept hitting the wall, this wall.
And who is Stan?
Stan kind of,
Okay, I see you here in the courthouse. And where does he live?
On the right hand side, I think it's right there.
Okay. And you said he was banging on his wall?
Yes,
What, is that wall shared the wall with your house?
yes.
Okay. And approximately how long was he banging on the wall?
I don't know how long, but as soon as he started banging, I recorded it.
Okay. And so you did record it?
Yes,
And did you provide that to the police?
yes,
And the recording that we listened to shortly prior to this hearing, was that a true and accurate recording that
Yes.
you recorded? Your Honor, permission to play this recording for the court?
Permission granted.
And in addition to the banging, did you hear anything else?
he was cursing. So you can hear him cursing. As soon as he starts banging, he starts cursing, and he'll bang again.
And you recognized his voice?
Yes.
Was this the only day that this occurred?
No, he did it 3 times.
And when else did it happen?
The second time, I was not feeling good, so I just let it go. The third time, it was so loud.
And when prior to this?
3 days before.
3 days before? Okay. And did this affect the decorations at all in your house?
Yeah, I took everything down.
On the wall?
On the wall, I just took everything down. The banging was really hard.
And do you recall what he was yelling at you?
He was cursing, M-word and get the hell out of here.
Just 1 moment. And you have a prior history of issues with Mr. CATERBNE?
Oh, yeah.
And did those result in criminal charges?
Yeah.
Your Honor, I'd ask the court to take judicial notice. I do have the information of the prior charge, docket number 6520 of 2017A, reflecting a stalking charge misdemeanor of the 1st degree with Ms. Ramirez as the victim, and the docket showing that he was found guilty of those charges.
So noted.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Counselor?
Yes, Your Honor. Ma'am, you stated that this occurred over a period of 3 days.
Yes.
Okay. The recording that we just heard, which day was that?
January 11th.
Okay, was that the 3rd day that it happened?
Yes.
And did you call the police that day?
Yes.
Okay. Now you're stating that there was some cursing and yelling that you
Yes.
heard as well? You would agree with me, we didn't hear any cursing on the recording, correct?
No. But he was cursing like you can't hear that, but he did a banging.
Okay. So you weren't actually able to record anything that he said at any point, correct?
As soon as he starts banging, I put the phone up against the wall.
Okay.
Cursing, you can hear him, but the banging is really loud.
Okay. So just to reiterate something you said, you actually held the phone against the wall?
Yeah.
Okay. So when he's cursing, saying things, is there anything that's being said that's directly directed towards you personally?
I can't say it's directly towards me, but if he's saying, get the hell out of here, and he banged it on my wall, who he's talking to?
Okay. So you just took this as something that was being directed at you because you didn't know who else he could have been speaking to?
No, I took it directly to me because it's not the first time.
Okay. But so you're just pulling that up because of prior instances?
Yes.
Okay. So did you attempt to speak with him at all regarding what was happening?
No, because our court order said to stay away from each other, and that's exactly what I did, what I had to do, stay away from him.
Okay.
But he doesn't follow that rule.
Okay. So that was when you called the police at that point?
Yes.
Okay. Was anything damaged in your home?
Just a picture film, one picture film, but that's okay. I just took everything down.
Okay. And when things were being, when you heard the shouting, was there any sort of threatening language or anything, or was it just swearing and kind of vulgar?
Swearing.
Okay.
He curses.
Okay. All right. What room in your residence could you hear the banging?
Okay. We share walls.
Okay.
The walls that we share is going up the stairs when you come in. The stairs, my stairs.
Okay.
Let's put it this way. The stairs are here.
Okay.
You can hear it from here, and my bed is where that chair is at. He got it so hard. I ran from the chair, my bed, ran towards the wall, and we did it. Okay. We share walls together.
Okay.
Only one.
All right. So just want to make this clear. When you walk into your residence, the stairs are directly in front of you?
Yes.
And the wall that you share with Mr. CATERBNE is to the right when you walk in?
When we walk in, mine is on the left. This is towards the right.
Gotcha.
There's a room when we come in and we're going up the stairs, there's a room that we do share. Okay. In that room too, he bangs.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything further for this witness, Your Honor.
All right. Let me step down and leave.
Your Honor, call the calls for deeds.
You swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, nothing but the truth. I do. See.
Can you please state your name and how you're employed, sir?
Yes, my name is Officer Michael Dietz. I'm currently employed with Lancaster Bureau of Police, and I've been so since July of 2013.
And 1252 Fremont Street, is that within your jurisdiction as a Lancaster City Police officer?
It is.
And are you aware of the charges filed against Stanley CATERBNE of stalking felony of 3rd degree?
I am.
No further questions, Your Honor?
No cross, Judge.
Commonwealth with rest, Your Honor.
Reserves argument for trial, Judge.
All right.
Next, we're going to listen to the podcast regarding the serendipitous reincarnation of the cops' COINTELPRO stalking program.
Now, we have the author of A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America. He's a medical doctor, anesthesiologist, also has a degree in biology and science from the University of Texas. And he's also, again, an author, satweapons.com. And I was told by Dr. Bob Bowman before he died, he's been on air about this, that they were working on systems, basically a radiation gun that could target and hit somebody, and you die 6 months later. You know, you get real sick but not know what happened. And you know, basically high-powered, nuclear-powered microwaves. So we know this is going on. We're not saying everybody that you know thinks this is happening, it's really happening. Okay, but the point is this stuff exists, and we're going to break. You're with us for the balance of the hour. Dr. John Hall of San Antonio. You got like 2 minutes till we go to break. What do you think, knowing what you ran into and what your book's about with this, with your patients and friends and people, and thinking it wasn't true, because I've seen you on news in San Antonio and then discovering stuff, what does this look to you with this constellation of info we've got with this Alexis guy?
Well, you know, knowing that the government wants gun control, and then seeing some of the other things that have come out recently, like you said, you know, you can't discount mental illness, you know, especially being a physician, you've got to recognize that schizophrenics exist. For one, he's a little old to just all of a sudden go schizophrenic.
Bingo.
Yeah, typically.
34? Typically it's like in your teens.
18 to 28, yeah, typically. So acute schizophrenia in somebody at his age now, he worked in a field where he worked with these types of exotic weapons. Like on NBC, they mentioned the etching on his shotgun. They mentioned it as cryptic etching that said, "My ELF weapon." Well, it wasn't cryptic to him. He's worked in this field. So he knew exactly what he was being targeted with. The voices he was hearing didn't tell him to go run amok at the Navy Yard. He went to where he perceived the weapons coming from.
Ooh, that's a good point as a theory. They were programming him for a mass shooting, so he went to them.
Exactly. Yeah, having worked with a lot of these victims that are hearing voices that are being put into their head, not from schizophrenia, most of them kind of have an idea of where it's coming from. Some of them are wrong because the technology is meant to foster a wrong belief, make you think it's your relatives or your parents or your work, when in reality, at least from what we found with counter surveillance in San Antonio, it's usually a private investigative group made up of former federal employees.
Yeah, that's why you've been on the news. You guys have actually caught people before in the act.
Exactly.
Wow. Oh, man, I tell you. And so you've got over 1 million private contractors operating domestically just in PSYOPs, they admit.
There's too many clearances out there. Too many clearances. And, looking at mind control technology, they've always contracted it out. It's never done directly by the CIA, not since the 60s.
Absolutely. Wow. We'll be right back with the doctor. This is powerful info. He'll have the floor.
The Alex Jones Channel.
15 years ago in Los Angeles and Tokyo, I know because we got the director of the company on. It was in the news, WashTech. They had Coke machines, soft drink machines that would beam audio to your middle ear that nobody else could hear. Now they have it, like out of Minority Report, where you walk by and because of Facebook, the billboard in Times Square, this has been out for 4 years, knows who you are, 3 years, face scans, and then makes announcements to your name what you're doing. Here's Wired Magazine today. Transfer a secret audio message by poking someone with your finger. Wired Magazine. And these are these systems that have been patented since the 50s. It's way more advanced. And they have digital data transfer over power lines now, where they admit all the new appliances are designed to spy on you, the CIA director said. So this is going on. The question is, how many people are schizophrenic that come to you? Well, get into what you discovered, the private investigators they're using, how it's subcontracted, and who they're targeting.
Well, the girl came to me complaining that she was hearing voices, that she was being followed, being targeted, knew her well, knew the family, knew there was no history of mental illness, knew there wasn't a drug problem or alcohol problem, had heard a little bit about this technology before. So gave her the benefit of the doubt and actually spent some money. We audio bugged her condominium, had people, following her to see if she was being followed. And indeed, the people following her, including myself, were followed to and from her condo and to my home. We got the plate numbers of the people doing the stalking. It all came back to a former FBI guy running a private investigative group. So seeing that we couldn't get anything done.
By the way, you're not just saying this. This is on the San Antonio TV. This has been national news.
Yeah, and the book's been out since 06. Most of this happened prior to 06.
That's right. I mean, and now you found the network nationwide, but go ahead.
But so we go to the police, and the police, at the time, Texas had different stalking laws. As you know, our stalking laws have changed. If you notice the same person following you now, you can actually get a restraining order against them. At that time, you had to show injury.
No, I know, because I went to court over it. The guy was threatening to even kill my sister, and they wouldn't do anything.
No,
I finally got him, though.
At that time, you had to show injury, and she had been injured because she had actually been drugged and sexually assaulted. But with Rohypnol, she didn't have any memory of the culprits. So we audio bugged her place, caught them breaking into her place, caught them putting Rohypnol in the water. Basically, the police said, this guy's former FBI, he stalks people for a living. She doesn't have any recall of the rape, and there's no way we're going to get a stalking charge. That was why I decided to write the book, to basically put it out there that this technology does exist.
But I mean, obviously, if they've got access to high-level government stuff, the question is, why are they doing it? Or is it, what's the point?
From after the book came out, and then now after talking to about 5,000 or 6,000 other victims, and globally and here, it appears to be experimental. We both live in Texas. As you know, guns and taxes won't control everybody, especially in Texas. You and I can, we can, skin a deer, we can run a trout line, we can get water out of a well. You can live off the land and not be controlled with taxes. Electromagnetic weaponry, just as Persinger said 15 years ago, he could control every brain on the planet with microwave.
That's right. For those that don't know, tell people about the Pentagon. They're public about this.
Yeah, they're very public about it. That it's been found out that the brain is very susceptible to ELF waves, to microwave energy.
In fact, that's the Pentagon paper. The brain has no firewall.
The brain has no firewall. You can put voices in the head. For those of you listening that think that's an impossibility, go to audiospotlight.com. You can purchase a unit yourself to put voices in somebody's head.
Oh, no, Ventura didn't believe it till they got one and did it. He's like, what the? I mean...
there's several ways to do that. This guy, this new shooter, he worked in that field. The fact that he put that as NBC said, that cryptic message that they couldn't understand what he meant by my ELF weapon, well, he understood it. That's why he went to where he perceived the voices as coming from, is why he went there. This wasn't voices telling him or subliminally controlling him to go amok, I don't believe, at least based on my experience.
Listen, he could have been a schizophrenic, except they opened all the doors for him. I mean, you got a high security clearance and you're calling the cops 4 times and showing up saying the government's after me. You're going to the funny farm. Your clearance is yanked.
Well, and
they definitely.
And if you remember from the early MK Ultra studies, the known mentally ill were experimented on more than the sane.
Well, and then they threw Army officers out of windows, Olson and others. I mean, yeah.
And I think this is basically a continuation of MK Ultra, because MK Ultra ended with the Rockefeller Commission. Supposedly, but all that ended was the freedom of information. All they did is make it all more black. And then as technology advanced, and they found out that, oh my gosh, the brain is very susceptible to, especially the temporal lobes, to microwave energy and various radio frequencies. All it did is take the lab out of the lab and into society. It can all be done remotely now, where we're all in the lab.
That's right. We're all in a giant electromagnetic prison, and they admit they're putting carrier waves over the cell phone, all of it. So there's one wave for your phone to work, but they're putting other information over that wave. It's incredible.
In Los Angeles, in the prison system now, they're also using a millimeter wave weapon that they have mounted in the top of the break room, and it's a guard with a joystick in the control room that when a prisoner gets out of line, you can zap them with a millimeter wave and burn their skin to get them to back off or get them to do what you want.
Smaller unit than what they have on the backs of Humvees.
Exactly. A lot smaller. The directed energy, as a matter of fact, El Spectador out of Colombia, which is a big news agency down there, came to me about a year ago now. Vladimir Putin came out in one of his comments and said that whichever country controls the best directed energy weapons will control the world without missiles or bullets. He went on to refer to a new wave weapon they have that they call a zombie gun that basically controls your mind.
I saw that, yeah.
None of our major media here.
By the way, I've talked to high-level military. They say those zombie guns are already deployed on Humvees in every major city.
Well, and if you look back at the first Desert Storm war, the
Iraqis were terrified. They just came out even when they hadn't been bombed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there was one scenario I talked to an Iraqi soldier that was there at that war. There was a Humvee that came out that witnesses said lightning bolts came out of the Humvee and struck a personnel carrier carrying insurgents. The personnel carrier was shrunk down to the size of a Volkswagen Bug, and the bodies of the insurgents were shrunk down to about 18 inches long. Were completely dehydrated.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I saw the photos of that. They look like a little roast.
Mostly water. So any type of weapon like that that's going to, instantly dehydrate you is going to shrink you down.
You know what I hate about this interview? Everything you're talking about, I've separately is open source. So how bad is it? And so I guess it's government contracts to private agencies, private contractors to just go out, and now they're doing a mass test before the final rollout, I guess.
That's what it appears to be. And most of the cases I've talked to and victims, it is usually a private investigator who used to be a CIA agent or used to be a federal agent that's been allowed access to this technology. Now, I have had a number of whistleblowers come to me asking for advice that probably are being directly harassed by a government agency. That's the rarity. Most of the people I'm dealing with that are voicing these complaints are housewives. 70% of the victims are women.
Well, it's always like that in testing. They go after the weakest first as a beta before they hit real targets.
It appears that each one of these groups in every major city that's been given access to this technology can use it carte blanche however they want to use it. The group in San Antonio is mostly for sexual assault. As I told you on our break, there's a group of 60 gay men in Palm Springs. They're all hearing the same voice, the voice of a lady named Lisa. At the same time, they're being persecuted by her verbally. They're being attacked with directed energy weapons, burns on the skin, twitching, heart palpitations, headaches, blurred vision. That's very noticeably coming from the outside. The chances of 60 people all hearing the same voice, that's not schizophrenia. That's experimentation until proven.
Well, they do it as groups to then test the interaction to see how, when they now want to target the targeted group later from the research, these are scientists, then the groups they're allowing to use this clearly are there just to get the raw data for the big scientific brains back at headquarters studying it.
Well, that's exactly right. When you when you have a different perpetrator group in every major city being allowed carte blanche to use it however they want to use it. Matter of fact, some of this is hired out. I know the former FBI guy in San Antonio, if you want to make your spouse look crazy during a divorce, to kind of point the proceedings down one direction, you can hire him to do that. If you want to hire him for corporate espionage, you can hire him.
Well, they say on these law enforcement things that that's what it's for.
We're going to listen to the podcast regarding the serendipitous reincarnation of the cops' COINTELPRO stalking program.
It is now 5:54 a.m. on Monday, July 29th, 2020. I am presenting this podcast titled The Stan J. CATERBNE Cops Gang-Stalking COINTELPRO Operation and How They Targeted Me. I am a federal whistleblower, and in 1987 I met with executives of an international arms dealer named International Signal and Control, PLC, or ISC, headquartered in my hometown of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I at the time was a shareholder, and I was solicited to finance some problematic operations through a financial firm that I had founded, Financial Management Group, Limited. In 1991 ISC was indicted for the third largest fraud in the United States. It was $1 billion fraud. ISC merged with one of Great Britain's largest defense contractor, Ferranti International, PLC, in 1987. That same year I was arrested for literally stealing my own files from my own office and faced 4 felonies and 3 misdemeanors with prison terms in the tens of years. After the merger was completed in December of 1987, all of my charges were dismissed by the Lancaster County District Attorney's Office in March of 1988. ISC board member, Bobby Ray Inman, who was former Director of Naval Intelligence and former Director of the National Security Agency or NSA. Inman was key to obtaining the Department of Defense contracts and was nominated to be Secretary of Defense for Bill Clinton, name after allegations of ISC began to surface. In 1991 Ted Koppel and the Financial Times of London broadcast 3 different segments disclosing that ISC was essentially a black ops program of the NSA and CIA and tried desperately to derail the nomination for Director of the CIA, Robert Gates, who they allege was involved in the early stages of the program. He was named Director of the CIA and later served as Secretary of Defense for George W. Bush and now President Barack Obama.
I should also point out that Bobby Ray Inman was also director of a company called SAIC, or Science Applications International Corporation. Now that company was also associated with mind control technologies.
Cover up my allegations of fraud within ISC and the attempts to disclose those and other issues regarding myself, my brother, and father's victimization of U.S.-sponsored mind control and COINTELPRO activities. However, I was able to be awarded benefits from the Social Security Administration for long-term disability benefits for being a victim of mind control and lethal electromagnetic weapon attacks. Since 1987 I have solicited some 40 lawyers, including some high-profile names for representation. However, the COINTELPRO activities are quite successful in saying that such solicitations are always unfulfilled. ISC was responsible for developing the cluster bomb, and Saddam Hussein was a loyal customer. In the late 1980s and early 1990 I was a contractor for several government agencies, including DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency of the Department of Defense. My company Advanced Media Group had conducted business all over the world, including some 15 or more foreign countries. DARPA is widely known as a developer of mind control technologies and holds patents. DARPA is also credited for developing the Internet. I was an expert in optical publishing, and my company was one of only 4 or 5 that had the capability to manufacture CD-ROMs in the domestic United States. Now, I am a prisoner of the state and have been since 1987, and that the activities surrounding my life has escalated into a daily occurrence of assaults. I have been a victim of organized stalking since 1987 and a victim of electronic and direct energy weapons since 2005. I had also been telepathic since 2005. In 2005 the United States Sponsored mind control turned into an all-out assault of mental telepathy, synthetic telepathy, and pain and torture through the use of directed energy devices and weapons that usually fire a low-frequency electromagnetic energy at the targeted victim. This assault was no coincidence in that it began simultaneously with the filing of the federal action in United States District Court or CATERBNE v. Lancaster County Prison et. Al. or 05 CV 2288. In March of 2016 I was detained by some 8 NSA security police, handcuffed, and interrogated for about 2 hours at NSA headquarters in Ft. Meade, Maryland. In 2005 I was detained by 2 DIA, or Defense Intelligence Agency officers of the Department of Defense, in Austin, Texas and interrogated for almost 2 hours. Both incidents I was sent on my way without any explanation and commanded to stay of federal government military bases and federal properties, significant of someone on the terrorist watch list. Unfortunately, while I have made many in-person complaints to just about every law enforcement agency, including several meeting with FBI in Philadelphia and Harrisburg, the pleas for help and assistance have yielded nothing but more attacks to my person, property, electronics, home, auto, reputation, intellectual property, and lastly his mental state of mind, a brutal array of psychological torture. has already made claims of COINTELPRO-like tactics in his filings in a dozen or more federal lawsuits and injunctions. Today I have some 16 active and pending court cases in state and federal courts, as a pro se litigant, before the United States Supreme Court and pending for a conference scheduled on September 29, 2020, case No. 19-8480 in re to CATERBNE versus the National Security Agency, or NSA. CATERBNE is alleging illegal surveillance and illegal use of sophisticated weapons patented by the NSA that are referred to by Edward Snowden and other experts as remote neural monitoring, where they use microwave technologies to read your mind and use synthetic telepathy as a form of harassment and torture. The following is an official court transcript of the negotiated no-contest plea and sentencing hearing of October 3, 2019 before Judge Donald Totaro of the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas. I spent 9 months in the Lancaster County Prison that resulted in torture and crippling me by not providing effective medical treatment. In addition, I am sentenced to 15 years of probation and parole, or until I am 77 years old. The fabricated criminal charge, case number 0921-2019, and the second Brunilde Ramirez stalking charge since 2017 follows some 32 criminal charges that have been dismissed since 1987 in the Lancaster County District Attorney's Office. The Ramirez household leads a neighborhood stalking and harassment program that even today keeps me inside of my own home during the hot summer months of 2020. And the vandalism and thefts as a result of the daily break-ins to my home have resulted in financial losses of about $40,000 and some 4 or 5 hours per day repairing and replacing items broken or stolen. Until last year, the Lancaster County District Attorney Office was headed by Mr. Craig Stedman, who came to the Lancaster County District Attorney's Office in August of 1991 from the United States Pentagon and Department of Defense, where he trained as a military legal officer with classified clearances. This is very alarming and suspect in that it was months before the criminal indictments were filed against International Signal and Control, or ISC. Ironically, a few months later George H.W. Bush named William Barr as the United States Attorney General until January of 1992. In addition, and most importantly, William Barr, currently the United States Attorney General, was in the CIA from 1974 to 1977. This background information will set the tone for the rest of this podcast. Mr. Reader Judge, it is the Commonwealth's intent to keep Mr. CATERBNE under the supervision of the court for as long as possible. I've been involved with Mr. CATERBNE's cases for a while. I prosecuted him on the other case, the one that he had the PV on. I've become aware of his actions. I've come to know the victim and the victim's family, and it is my intent in structuring this agreement to have the opportunity to keep the defendant under the court's thumb for as long as possible. The court, but you could have done that, couldn't you, by maintaining the felony? I mean, what's the point of doing that if then he's charged with a new offense and the Commonwealth is going to come in and reduce it from a felony to a misdemeanor? Mr. Reader, well, Judge, I think that I'm not sure what the court is asking me. I've described my intent. The court, well, why reduce it? I guess that's what I'm asking you. He allegedly did it again with the same victims, same type conduct. Mr. Reader, that's correct, Your Honor. The court, I mean, we're gonna be, it seems to me, this is going to be an ongoing situation. Mr. Reader, I agree, Judge. This is going to be an ongoing situation. There's nothing that I can do to change Mr. CATERBNE. By doing this sentence this way, Judge, the defendant has served his time-served sentence on the present case in a 3-year probationary sentence. If you really want to prevent this from happening again, I'm placing this with the court. The court, well, now wait, excuse me. If you wanted to prevent it from happening again, I'm placing this with the Commonwealth. You're dropping a felony. Mr. Reader, yes, Your Honor, I understand that. And I have been involved in the prosecution of Mr. CATERBNE for a couple of years now, and I honestly believe that the best thing for him and for the community is to keep the court's tether on him for as long as possible. So, what I would recommend, if I may, Judge, I was going to save this comment for later on. The court, no, I want to know what you are going to be asking for in the sentence for the PV. Mr. Reader, what I would foresee there, Judge. The court, because, potentially, if you're asking for jail time, it could be a state sentence. Mr. Reader, I understand that, Judge, yes. I'm not going to ask for that. Although that might be the right, the court might determine that that's the right thing. That might be the safest place for Mr. CATERBNE, to be at Laurel Highlands State Prison. I'm not really sure. That might be the best thing, and that I would leave to the discretion of the court. The court might decide that a long term of probation again is appropriate there, and maybe that would be the best thing to keep the court's rope on him for as long as possible, Judge. The court, but if it doesn't deter him and he does it again, as he allegedly has here, and he comes back with new charges and they're reduced and he's given time served, again, I'm not sure at the end of the day how that helps. Mr. Reader, well, if I can defend my position, Judge. My observation of the prior record on the defendant is that over years and years and years, in looking at his rap sheet, over the years he had minor charges and minor charges and minor charges and minor charges that were dismissed and didn't go forward, or there was some re-offenses. The court, right. Mr. Reader, and he really suffered no penalty. The court, right. Mr. Reader, finally, he ran into me and I put him in jail. So, he has come up against someone who is serious about his conduct, and I have demonstrated to him that I am serious about his conduct by convicting him of simple assault, recklessly endangering, and another offense on the 2017 case. When he then violated his supervision on that, I had him charged with a felony. So, my level of seriousness here I don't think can be questioned in regard to dealing with Mr. CATERBNE in the history of the way that the prosecution in this county has dealt with Mr. CATERBNE. I've stepped up. And if you want to tell me that you're not gonna take this plea, you'd rather not, then I'll take him to trial and convict him. It's okay with me. The court, what is the position of the victims? Mr. Reader, I believe that Brunilda Ramirez, who is here today, she's seated on the right back there, Your Honor, she would like to address the court. I believe that she would like this plea to go through. I've spoken with her. I've come to know her. She was a victim in the 2017 case. I came to know her. Her grandson, Xavier, who was a victim in that case, a very nice young man. Her daughter is Ashley, who is seated to the left of or to Ms. Ramirez's right. Ashley was also a victim in that case. The defendant stalked her. There's another daughter, a granddaughter, Jaylene, Jayleen, a disabled young woman, who the defendant has harassed, a member of Ms. Ramirez's family. I believe Ms. Ramirez would tell you that she would like the court to accept this plea agreement, but if the court would like to hear from her now, I will ask her to come forward. Would you like to hear from her at this time? The court, let me first hear from Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, may I, Your Honor? The court, yes. Mr. Thompson, first of all, let me address the history that's being discussed about. Mr. CATERBNE. We're talking about summaries and misdemeanors that were dismissed or withdrawn over the years. The court, I'm sorry. Let me just interrupt you, because I looked at the PSI that was done after he was convicted of stalking, and they referenced convictions. Mr. Thompson, okay. I don't have anything. The court, oh, you don't have that? Mr. Thompson, no. The court, well, according to my review of the PSI, and I'm happy to give you a copy here, Mr. Thompson, may I, Your Honor? The court, yes, that indicates that there was a disorderly conduct conviction in 2006, Harris in November. In December 2006, harassment, disorderly conduct, summaries. 2007, fleeing or eluding police, a misdemeanor. 2017, 10 years later, a noise ordinance. That's in February. Then August of 2017, harassment, disorderly conduct. June of 2018, a noise ordinance. Then the November of 2018 stalking conviction where he was sentenced, and then this most recent case. So there may be others where the charges were dropped. I don't know. According to the PSI, these were convictions. Mr. Thompson, my understanding, Your Honor, and if I may? The court, yes. Mr. Thompson, if there are convictions, I'm not talking about those. I'm merely talking about if there were charges that he was charged with and then they were withdrawn. We can't speak to those today because they were withdrawn or dropped. The court, I'm not even considering them. I didn't even know about them. Mr. Thompson, the Commonwealth brought them up. I'm just addressing them. The court, okay. I don't know anything about them. Mr. Thompson, okay. The court, they are not in any way being considered. Mr. Thompson, okay. Moving on from that, Your Honor, with regard to the prior case, yes, there was a prior case. Yes, there was a conviction. Yes, it was involving the same victims. That is on appeal right now. What I can speak about is our office has a pretty strong opinion on that it is likely to be overturned and it may be retried. Given that and given the fact that Mr. CATERBNE has a relatively low prior record, that this is an issue that comes up with neighbors, this is a neighbor dispute, we understand that. Our stance on this is he was willing to take the plea on this. He was willing to take the conviction on this. The only request that we had of the Commonwealth was no further incarceration. He's already been incarcerated for 9 months when his guidelines call for probation to, I believe it's 3 months or 6 months, whatever the case may be. He's served that time, and we didn't have any problem with additional probation, remaining on supervision. The only other thing that we requested is that he not be a convicted felon, given the fact that his record is low, given the fact that he was willing to come to an agreement, to forego trial. My understanding from speaking with Mr. Reader is that's not something that the victims wanted to do, and that was something that was negotiated in good faith between us, and we felt that that was the right result. Really, the main goal of the Commonwealth here was to keep him under probation. Our goal was to move the felony to a misdemeanor. Obviously, we felt that that would be in Mr. CATERBNE's best interest. So we met in the middle. The felony, we agreed to move the felony to a misdemeanor, and we agreed to the term of supervision. The court, but what about the consecutive? There's no concern on your part about what could happen there? Mr. Thompson, yes, there is, and I planned on addressing that vigorously whenever the time came, Your Honor. The court, so, what will you ask me to do to make sure that it is a county sentence and not a state? Mr. Thompson, Your Honor, what I would ask you to do is to follow the recommendation from Mr. Retu, which I have in front of me, does not recommend any additional incarceration. It's a time served with a recommendation. We don't have any objection to him, it's a probationary being on probation. We just don't want him to be incarcerated any further. Mr. CATERBNE is getting older in his years. He's clearly disabled. He's clearly physically disabled. It's the defense's position that he's not a danger to anyone to warrant further incarceration. He's willing to, in speaking with him, he's willing to go to counseling. It's something that he actually requested. We feel that that's the appropriate. The court, I mean, that's good. That's something new, though, because I've read the psychiatric report from last year and the competency evaluation. The indication there was that he had no desire. Mr. Thompson, no, he discussed that with me recently, that he wants to speak with a counselor about the things that have been happening and what his concerns are, and I commended him for that. I think that's a good result here. And so what we're trying to do here, Judge, is to meet in the middle to where we don't have to go to another trial, the victims don't have to testify. There's no further disputes between the two of them. Mr. CATERBNE can get counseling. He can finish out the remainder under his supervision and hopefully complete that successfully. That's the goal here today. If Your Honor would deem fit to not run it consecutive, the only request on the Commonwealth would be that it mirror the recommended sentence by Mr. Retu, that it be something that's probationary in nature. The court and, yes, Your Honor. Today Nils Melzer, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, has just completed years of work and is presenting to the full body of the United Nations in October his reports and authoritative orders that finally equate psychological torture as harmful and lethal as physical torture. Stan J. CATERBNE is included in the complaints from targeted individuals around the world, and has filed other complaints to the United Nations Human Rights Council, beginning in 2007. The surreptitious reincarnation of COINTELPRO with the cops' gang-stalking program was written by Rahul D. Manchanda, ESQ, and published on August 22, 2016. Rahul Manchanda is of the Manchanda Law Office PLLC. http://www.manchanda-law.com/mt_rahul.html. Right parenthesis is headquartered at our own private and spacious office suite located at 30 Wall Street 8th floor, New York, 10005, overlooking the East River, in Manhattan's illustrious financial district. We are a fully staffed law firm made up of many experienced and dedicated attorneys and legal professionals. Past or current staff and attorneys have included former Department of Homeland Security, DHS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, Immigration Court, United States Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, United States Customs Service, Executive Office for Immigration Review, EOIR, Customs and Border Protection, CBP, United States Department of Defense, DOD, the Pentagon, and Assistant District Attorneys. For more than 18 years, we have successfully represented our individual and corporate clients in simple and complex immigration law, deportation defense, international law, and criminal defense. Our diverse client base hails from nearly every corner of the globe, including much of the United States, Canada, Mexico, Europe, Africa, Australia, Asia, South America, and the Middle East. Currently we are working with individuals from France, Germany, Italy, Indonesia, India, Israel, Kenya, Mali, South Africa, Sweden, Japan, China, United Kingdom, Kuwait, Jordan, and scores of other nations. If you would like to speak with an attorney immediately, please call us at 212-968-8600 or toll free at 855-207-7660. In 1975, Senator Frank Church convened a joint senatorial/congressional inquiry into the egregious human rights and civil liberties violations of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, National Security Agency, NSA, as well as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, against people both foreign and domestic. Such blatant transgressions included the neutralization and elimination of political dissidents, enemies of the state, real or imagined threats to national security, and anyone else on the proverbial shit list of the military-industrial complex, MIC. The Church Committee was the United States Senate Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities, a United States Senate committee chaired by Senator Frank Church, DID, in 1975. A precursor to the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. The committee investigated intelligence gathering for illegality by the aforementioned agencies after certain activities had been revealed by the Watergate affair. Some famous examples which have since emerged include 1. The FBI sending letters to Martin Luther King Jr. encouraging him to kill himself or else they would tell the world about his sexual proclivities. 2. The planned or successful assassinations of foreign leaders such as Fidel Castro, Patrice Lumumba, and countless other South American, Middle Eastern or Asian leaders. 3. The wholesale undermining of entire foreign economies if they democratically elected someone at odds with the elite. Power structure deep state of the United States such as what occurred against Salvatore Allende of Guatemala. 4. The possible assassination of John F. Kennedy. 5. Revelations of Christopher Pyle in January 1970 of the United States Army's spying on the civilian population. 6. The December 22, 1974 New York Times article by Seymour Hersh detailing operations engaged in by the CIA over the years that had been dubbed the Family Jewels, involving covert action programs involving assassination attempts against foreign leaders and covert attempts to subvert foreign governments were reported for the first time. 7. Efforts by intelligence agencies to collect information on the political activities of U.S. citizens. And 8. Countless other examples, both overseas and domestically. The end result of the Church Committee hearings was the outright banning on CIA assassinations as well as the FBI/DOJ COINTELPRO gang-stalking programs. In 1975 and 1976, the Church Committee published 14 reports on various United States intelligence agencies' formation, operations, and the alleged abuses of law and of power that they had committed, with recommendations for reform, some of which were later put in place. Among the other matters investigated were attempts to assassinate other foreign leaders such as Rafael Trujillo of the Dominican Republic, the Diem brothers of Vietnam, Gen. René Schneider of Chile, and Director of CIA Allen Dulles' plan, approved by President Dwight Eisenhower, to use the Sicilian Mafia to kill Fidel Castro of Cuba. Under recommendations and pressure by this committee, President Gerald Ford issued Executive Order 11,905, ultimately replaced in 1981 by President Reagan's Executive Order 12,333, to ban United States sanctioned assassinations of foreign leaders. Together, the Church Committee's reports have been said to constitute the most extensive review of intelligence activities ever made available to the public. Much of the contents were classified, but over 50,000 pages were declassified under the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992. The Church Committee learned that beginning in the 1950s, the CIA and FBI intercepted, opened, and photographed more than 215,000 pieces of mail by the time the program was shut down. The Church report found that the CIA was zealous about keeping the U.S. Postal Service from learning that mail was being opened by government agents. CIA agents moved mail to a private room to open the mail or in some cases opened envelopes at night after stuffing them in briefcases or coat pockets to deceive postal officials. On May 9, 1975, the Church Committee called CIA Director William Colby. That same day Ford's top advisors, Henry Kissinger, Donald Rumsfeld, Philip W. Buchan, and John Marsh, drafted a recommendation that Colby be authorized to brief only rather than testify, and that he would be told to discuss only the general subject, with details of specific covert actions to be avoided except for realistic hypotheticals. But the Church Committee had full authority to call a hearing and require Colby's testimony. Ford and his top advisors met with Colby to prepare him for the hearing. The Ford administration, particularly Rumsfeld, was concerned about the effort by members of the Church Committee in the Senate and the Pike Committee in the House to curtail the power of United States intelligence agencies. It seemed that Rumsfeld et al. Was comfortable giving the power to arbitrarily destroy anyone as enemies of the state by anyone working in the IC and MIC. COINTELPRO, Counterintelligence Program, was a series of covert and illegal projects conducted by the FBI aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting domestic political dissidents. FBI records show that COINTELPRO resources targeted groups and individuals that the FBI deemed subversive, including anti-Vietnam War organizers, activists of the civil rights movement or Black Power movement, e.g., Martin Luther King, Jr., and the Black Panther Party, feminist organizations, anti-colonial movements, such as Puerto Rican independence groups like the Young Lords, and a variety of organizations that were part of the broader New Left. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover issued directives on COINTELPRO, ordering FBI agents to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, neutralize, or otherwise eliminate the activities of these movements and especially their leaders. Under Hoover, the agent in charge of COINTELPRO was William C. Sullivan. Tactics included anonymous phone calls, IRS audits, and the creation of documents that would divide their targets internally. After the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, Hoover singled out King as a major target for COINTELPRO. Under pressure from Hoover to focus on King, Sullivan wrote, "In the light of King's powerful demagogic speech, we must mark him now, if we have not done so before, as the most dangerous Negro of the future in this nation from the standpoint of communism, the Negro, and national security." The final report of the Select Frank Church Committee blasted the behavior of the intelligence community in its domestic operations, including COINTELPRO, in no uncertain terms. The committee finds that the domestic activities of the intelligence community at times violated specific statutory prohibitions and infringed the constitutional rights of American citizens. The legal questions involved in intelligence programs were often not considered. On other occasions, they were intentionally disregarded in the belief that because the programs served the national security, the law did not apply. While intelligence officers on occasion failed to disclose to their superiors programs which were illegal or of questionable legality, the committee finds that the most serious breaches of duty were those of senior officials, who were responsible for controlling intelligence activities and generally failed to assure compliance with the law. Many of the techniques used would be intolerable in a democratic society even if all of the targets had been involved in violent activity, but COINTELPRO went far beyond that. The Bureau conducted a sophisticated vigilante operation aimed squarely at preventing the exercise of First Amendment rights of speech and association, on the theory that preventing the growth of dangerous groups and the propagation of dangerous ideas would protect the national security and deter violence. According to attorney Brian Glick in his book War at Home, the FBI used four main methods during COINTELPRO. 1. Infiltration. Agents and informers did not merely spy on political activists. Their main purpose was to discredit and disrupt. Their very presence served to undermine trust and scare off potential supporters. The FBI and police exploited this fear to smear genuine activists as agents. 2. Psychological warfare. The FBI and police used myriad dirty tricks to undermine progressive movements. They planted false media stories and published bogus leaflets and other publications in the name of targeted groups. They forged correspondence, sent anonymous letters, and made anonymous telephone calls. They spread misinformation about meetings and events, set up pseudo-movement groups run by government agents, and manipulated or strong-armed parents, employers, landlords, school officials, and others to cause trouble for activists. They used bad jacketing to create suspicion about targeted activists, sometimes with lethal consequences. 3. Harassment via the legal system. The FBI and police abused the legal system to harass dissidents and make them appear to be criminals. Officers of the law gave perjured testimony and presented fabricated evidence as a pretext for false arrests and wrongful imprisonment. They discriminatorily enforced tax laws and other government regulations and used conspicuous surveillance, investigative interviews, and grand jury subpoenas in an effort to intimidate activists and silence their supporters. 4. Illegal force. The FBI conspired with local police departments to threaten dissidents, to conduct illegal break-ins in order to search dissident homes, and to commit vandalism, assaults, beatings, and assassinations. The object was to frighten or eliminate dissidents and disrupt their movements. The FBI specifically developed tactics intended to heighten tension and hostility between various factions and their targeted groups and individuals, and this resulted in numerous deaths. among which were San Diego Black Panther Party members John Huggins, Bunchy Carter, and Sylvester Bell. While COINTELPRO was officially terminated in April 1971, critics allege that continuing FBI actions indicate that post-COINTELPRO reforms did not succeed in ending COINTELPRO tactics. Enter the COPS federal and state-sanctioned gang-stalking program. Community-oriented policing, COPS, is a strategy of policing that focuses on police building ties and working closely with members of the communities, and originated in 1994 when then-Senator Joseph Biden wrote and then-President Bill Clinton enacted the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, VCLE, establishing the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, COPS, within the U.S. Department of Justice. Community policing is supposedly a policy that requires police to engage in a proactive approach to address public safety concerns, and is a cornerstone of the Clinton administration, gaining its funding from the 1994 Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. Common implementations of community policing include 1. Relying on community-based crime prevention by utilizing civilian education, neighborhood watch, and a variety of other techniques, as opposed to relying solely on police patrols. 2. Restructuring the patrol from an emergency response-based system to emphasizing proactive techniques such as foot patrol. 3. Increased officer accountability to civilians they are supposed to serve. And 4. Decentralizing police authority, allowing more discretion amongst lower-ranking officers, and more initiative expected from them. In other words, federal and state-sanctioned and approved gang-stalking. Gang-stalking has been described as fascism, using East Germany-style Stasi tactics, a systemic form of control, which seeks to control every aspect of a targeted individual's life. Gang-stalking has many similarities to workplace mobbing, but takes place outside in the community, where the target is followed around and placed under surveillance by groups of organized civilian spies/snitches 24/7, 365 days a year.
On behalf of St. Joseph Hospital and Financial Management Group, and Barley, Snyder, Cooper, and Barber, and Crown Life, I'd like to welcome you to what we hope will be a very informative, hopefully entertaining as well, and useful information seminar this evening. There's quite a few people that have worked very hard in putting this together, and I'd like to give you at least a brief rundown of who those people are. We will have a number of speakers which will be introduced one at a time. And then we'll have some time afterward to go around and look at some of the things that Financial Management Group does, some of the people that head the various divisions. You have been given one of the seminar handouts. I'm just going to introduce the names of the people. Scott Robertson, who is the seminar coordinator for Financial Management Group. He's also the Senior Vice President of FMG Advisory, which is our registered investment advisor, is here this evening. Stanley CATERBNE is the Executive Vice President of Financial Management Group, and he's also President of FMG Advisory. The two of them are responsible for coordinating the full seminar. Robert Kaufman is the President of Financial Management Group, and he will give you a brief discussion on what the group is and how it came to be and what we do. George Werner is legal counsel. He works with the firm that represents the hospital, Barley, Snyder, Cooper, and Barber. Phil Gazzo is the regional manager for Crown Life and will be giving a presentation tonight on one of the programs that are available. Kenneth Ray is portfolio manager for Financial Management Group, and he is also founder of ISIS, which is Investor Service Intelligence Systems, and handles a lot of the computer aspect of investment advisory. Bob Long is Vice President in charge of our accounting division and our tax specialist. My name is Alan Loss. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm also vice president of Financial Management Group, and I'm a director of the financial planning aspect of the organization. Todd Dellinger is a case writer for our group. Andrew Wessler is in charge of does case writing, is also director of case writing, and Lisa Johnson is director of our computer operations. At this time, Bob Kaufman, president of Financial Management Group.
Thank you, Alan. I just want to take a few minutes tonight to talk a little bit about Financial Management Group itself and give you a little bit of an overview. This is a purely educational meeting, and we don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but some of you might have nagging questions about whom is presenting this to you as you go through the material, and so I thought I'd give you an overview. If I have to leave in the middle of my 5 or 6, 7 minutes here, it's because my wife is 9.5 months pregnant on what should be a 9-month timetable, but I'm sure there'll be somebody here that can help me out. Financial Management Group was formed roughly 1 year ago with the concept of being a one-stop financial planning center where we would handle every financial need with specialists under one roof. And it was created mostly out of a market study that was done where we had asked a number of influential people in the community what their biggest problems were in the financial area. And they told us there were essentially two things. One was they didn't have the time to manage their money properly, to supervise all the different people that were giving them advice. The second was that there was no organization or coordination to their affairs because too many people were involved in them. We took that information and we looked at the various possibilities of how we might deal with that, and decided that the marketplace was ready for a team approach where we would have the information and research under one roof, have the specialist housed the same place for ease of information, and we have gone to the public with that idea. In less than a year, we currently have 24 people on staff here in Lancaster. We have offices in 600 communities here in Pennsylvania. We have offices in several surrounding states. And needless to say, we feel like the marketplace has been very receptive to our view of the business. Financial planning is our business. We're in the business of providing financial services in all the areas where people invest or handle money. But the process that we use is to sit down with people, find out what their needs are, and only address the needs that exist and do it in an objective way. Probably the hallmark of our business, as I see it, is that of being creative people, people of vision. I just want to take a minute and relate what I think to be the best story I've heard lately on vision. It was in a book that I read called Grinding It Out, The Making of McDonald's by Ray Kroc. In that book, it centered early in the book about a person named Harry Sordenbaum, and Harry was the accounting arm of McDonald's back when there was just one McDonald's. And Harry helped build that company to the point where there was 28 locations. And along came a recession, very similar to what we're going along today. Back in the early 60s, I believe it was 1964. And Harry started spending all his time with bankers, lunch and dinner, etc., and they kept telling him, Harry, it's time to pull in. Don't open any more stores. Just do what you do a little bit better, make some profits. And Harry believed them. And he went to his visionary leader, Ray Kroc, and he said, Ray, we got to stop. We got to pull in. We got to do what we're doing better. I'm convinced that we're on the road to disaster if we keep opening shops in this economy. And Ray's reply was, hell's bells, Harry. When things are tough, that's when you pump money into the economy. And when things turn, people will remember you. Well, Harry Sordenbaum did not believe his visionary leader, cashed in all his stock for $10 million and retired to South Alabama, which is not bad for 10 years' work. if they had listened to Ray Kroc and held his stock just 30 more months, it would have been worth $120 million. Now, I know what some of you are saying. You're saying, well, money can't buy happiness. And that's true. Money can't buy happiness. There's a person here in Lancaster I know that's worth about $10 million. The person in Atlanta I know that's worth about $9 million. And the person here in Lancaster isn't a bit happier than the one in Atlanta. So obviously money can't buy happiness. Another saying I like concerning money is that money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure does keep the kids in touch. And I'm sure some of you can relate to that. Because it's spring, I'd like to just tell one more story. It's a story of 3 umpires. It also has to do with vision. The first umpire, who was a pretty smart fellow, said, some of them are balls and some of them are strikes, but I call them the way I see them. The second umpire says, some of them are balls and some of them are strikes, but I call them the way they are. Third one, who was the smartest of the 3, said, some of them are balls and some of them are strikes, but they aren't anything until I call them. So I hope that when you're done with the informational part of this meeting and that you'll choose to do something with this information that'll make your business better or your personal life better, that something will help you have more money someday. And I hope that you'll choose to call them with us, Financial Management Group. Thank you.